What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Buffalo Commander. How's it going, Kevin?
Good. How's it going, Alex? What's up,
Good,
everybody?
good. Yeah, this will be our combine post-game show, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to do
Yeah.
basically a review of what we saw as it relates to the Commanders and the Bills, and some of the potential targets that we're looking at, and seeing if like stock drops, stock raised, kind of go into their numbers a little bit, and then maybe some sleepers for us based on what we saw. So. You want to get into it first on the things you want to talk about, and I can kind of just play off that.
Yeah, I think the probably what should start with are the quarterbacks
Yeah.
and what we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you know this, Alex. I'm a big Jaden Daniels fan. I have to admit that after the last few days and the interviews and what we've seen so far, obviously Jaden Daniels didn't go to the combine or do measurements or anything, but he did do his interview. I feel like I'm not as confident as I was last week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely a little bit more intrigued by some other quarterbacks. Drake May, JJ McCarthy, I think has looked really good. So that's I guess, my big takeaway so far. Obviously, we're going to dig a little deeper and everything, but that's my big takeaway. How about
Yeah.
you?
I think it was a bad decision for him not to weigh in. That's just two things about the combine that I think it tells you. It doesn't really validate any tape, but it at least lets us check what we see on tape against how you time and how your athletic testing goes. So, for instance, if you're really fast, but you play at a Division II school or an FCS school, we want to validate that speed to see what it looks like. If you're in the ACC right now, you might look faster than you do in the SEC because ACC is not very good. So we want to validate that, but we also want to see what kind of preparation you have as you go into these type of events and these type of football activities, because it tells us about how you're going to prepare in the future. And JJ McCarthy had the same problem as Jaden Daniels. And JJ McCarthy weighed in at 219 pounds, and he was supposed to be 203. And we have, Jaden Daniels is supposed to be 210, which we all probably know now that that's not the case, because if it was, he probably would have just weighed in. And he had 3 months to prepare, or 2.5 months to prepare for this, and he didn't gain the requisite amount of weight he needed to weigh in. And Malik Neighbors did the same thing, but I think Malik Neighbors just did it because he was doing it, and maybe just to give him as a shield, so to speak, is what it felt like. But
Yeah.
doing that's a bad decision, I think, especially that's the only real concern with you as a player. And now you're going to tell us we're not going to find that out. It's very disappointing, especially when McCarthy came in and showed that he did the work. Like, it was rumored that we were worried about him going over 200 pounds, even though he said he played at 205 and he got to 219. He was almost as heavy as Drake May was at 223, and he's 2 inches shorter. So
That's true.
mm-hmm.
The only thing I would say about that, Alex, is JJ McCarthy had a lot more to gain from doing this than Jaden Daniels did.
Maybe, yeah.
Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, he's moved up, and that's the reason why he did this, is he wanted to, kind of increase his stock. Jaden Daniels, obviously, has been a lot of talk about where he'd go. Most people think he's going to be in the top 3.
Yeah.
His weight is an issue. I'm sure that him and a lot of other smart people in the room, including his agent, have said, you know what? The risk outweighs the reward in this. Let's just stick to the pro day. And I know what you're saying. And obviously that's very well could be true, that his weight is actually less. It could just be that it's around what we kind of thought, which it still isn't great.
Yeah.
And he just didn't see any benefit of doing it. Let everybody worry about it. Let him get to the pro day, which is what he thinks he can do best on that particular day. So that's another angle.
He could have been shorter than expected too.
Could have been shorter because what's he listed as 6'4"?
Yeah. A lot of guys came in shorter than anticipated. Not
Right.
May, and not actually none of the top quarterbacks other than him came in short. So Drake May measured in what expected, over 6'4". Caleb Williams is over 6'1", and like an eighth or a quarter, which is fine, and 215. He's exactly the same size he is on his program. And then JJ was over 6'2" and 219 pounds, which is fantastic for him.
Yeah.
Penix was 6'2", 214, and Bo Nix was like 6'3" and 212. So
Okay.
they all measured in pretty close to where we thought they would be. I'm surprised JJ McCarthy's bigger than both those guys. He does not look that big on tape. So it's a
Yeah.
big
Now
difference.
the big thing for me, I mean, I think that, and it doesn't mean that I'm right. We
Mhm.
have different opinions, but you're definitely more focused on his weight, and it's super important. But what I took away from Jaden Daniels that worries me the most was just his interview that I saw,
Mhm.
his
Yep.
mannerism. He's definitely an introvert.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean that's automatic doomed. You're not going to be a good quarterback, but
Mhm.
that's not my type of quarterback that I like. I like somebody that's just really outspoken,
Yeah.
kind of like the loudest guy in the room
Mhm.
that commands a room and command. See what I did there?
Yeah.
And you didn't get that from him.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't know that about him. And this is where my inexperience with college comes into play.
Mhm.
I've never even heard the dude speak. I just looked at his video. I've heard a lot of other experts talk about him. This was my first time to hear him. And I was like, eh.
Yeah.
That was kind of my takeaway. Yeah.
Like
Now,
blank man.
would have to see her thing. No, but I mean, on the flip side of that, JJ McCarthy, very charismatic. Drake May, kind of what I thought he would be.
He's
And
like, yeah, he's like confident, but like in a milk toast way.
exactly.
He's not going to like be flamboyant, but he just sits
Right.
there and says what he believes, and he doesn't like flinch on it.
Right.
So that's good.
Caleb Williams, super impressed with that dude.
Mhm.
It's really
Yeah.
on top. Penix was one I also was not impressed with at all.
Mhm.
He really had some dumb answers when it came to, in
Yeah.
particular with the Commanders. I just wasn't impressed with that.
Sure.
Because obviously a lot of these people met with Dan Quinn. And by the way,
Mhm.
Josh Harris, the owner, was in on those meetings. I don't know if you heard about that.
No.
That's a little suspect to me and not something I want to hear about. It makes me
You
have,
mean like his involvement too much?
yeah, a little PTSD there with Dan Snyder kind of stuff. Like,
Sure.
you know, um, but anyway, I just thought
Yeah.
I'd mention that.
I,
So,
I, I
yeah,
understand that feeling. Bo Nix also really impressed me with his interview. He seemed to know more. Like they were going back to back with. I like the one-on-ones better than they do the media ones because they spend a lot of time asking them about who they've met with and things like that. But they met with Florio and Chris Sims, and I really liked what Bo Nix had to say as far as like his understanding of like schemes and defense and things of that nature versus Drake May talked about it a little bit. Jaden Daniels didn't really talk about it much at all.
yeah,
So I was impressed by that, but that's what I expected out of Bo Nix. He's been in college for like 1,000 years and he's like 30 years old. So he should know a lot about schemes and defenses, but
yeah,
I thought that he did pretty well too. I do wonder, and I'll get to this in a sec. Actually, it's probably a good transition with JJ McCarthy. There were reports from the combine that he impressed them more than anyone. Like the way he handled himself in the
yeah.
drills. When he made a mistake, he fixed it. He did have some trouble with the intermediate throws to the
I saw
outside the
that.
numbers.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, I mean, he had a good deep ball. He did the easy stuff well.
Well,
I think.
what's your feeling on this take that I don't have an opinion on it. I'm just kind of curious what you think about
Mhm.
how, obviously in the offense that he ran with Michigan, it was just run heavy.
Mhm.
And, if anything, he audibled more to running
Sure.
and didn't, this was also interesting. Cliff Kingsbury, when he did talk to the Commander's staff,
Mhm.
Cliff Kingsbury said, "Hey, if you see like a really good matchup, are you audibling to a go route?" And he said, "Man, I wish." In other
Yeah.
words, he didn't have that power to do that.
Yeah.
So, do you agree that a lot of his talents we really probably didn't see because of the offense that he had to run there?
Yeah, they are holding him back a little bit because this is the way Michigan and Jim Harbaugh's plays
Jim
football over
Harbaugh.
there.
Yeah.
He in Big Ten football is ground and pound and throw when you have to, not when you like. It's another thing with Roman Wilson, his number one receiver over there. I wonder how good he actually is because he didn't get the opportunity. So,
Right.
yeah, I
Right.
think there's a part of it's that. And part of it's too. He's 20 years old. He's really young. So
Yeah.
he might have, if he waited another year stay with Jim, he might have been the number one pick next year. I do believe that. So I don't know. Like he does have less experience doing the things that some of these other quarterbacks do, like probably like Caleb and Drake. But actually Drake did the similar things. I see he didn't audible a lot, and he had a lot of situations where they stuck to the run longer than they should have in a few games because they didn't have to do anything else. And
Right.
I wonder how much leeway he had also because their offense was more, they're pro style offenses. They're not spread offenses. So
Right.
I do wonder if if his potential is not even close to tapped. I mean, if he got those luxuries, would he be a potential like an Aaron Rodgers kind of player? I don't know if he
Yeah.
can. I don't know if he'd be that because Aaron's
Yeah.
arm is kind of
Right.
top maybe 10 all time. So, but he would be something better than what he's being looked at currently. So with JJ, I think there's no question he's overtaken Penix and Bo Nix for the number 4 quarterback.
Okay.
I think that there's a question now whether he's starting to challenge Jaden Daniels.
Wow.
Because like you said, like some of this is like how you can verbalize what you're going to do. And I felt like you're right. Jaden Daniels didn't do a lot of that when I was seeing him. Like I watched him with Florio and Chris Sims
Yeah.
too. I didn't
Yeah.
see any of that.
I didn't
So
either. I was a little disappointed in that, but I'm not
LSU scheme's very easy too, by the way. It's like a wide the hell open. Lots of like
right.
slot, slot seam 9 routes and things like that. Like it's a lot of like just go and I'm gonna throw it to you or I'm gonna run,
Yeah. Right.
So
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds like obviously so where would you put? Well, I think you just said it. I mean, it sounds
mhm.
like maybe JG McCarthy. You think he could even go, in second or third spot there?
I think you could I think there's a real question that's gonna arise eventually as
Right.
people start to think about it more over the next 7 weeks
Yeah.
about how high he can go. This reminds me a lot of Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was not even
Oh
the
yeah.
top 3 quarterback in that draft for until like 2 weeks beforehand. And then
Right.
all of a sudden he was on TV more, and his arm strength showed up a lot at the combine, and you started to see personality flaws with Josh Rosen, and then
Right.
he leapfrogged Josh Allen and Sam Darnold. And I don't think that'll happen because I think there was no generational quarterback in that draft. And Caleb Williams, by all accounts, is probably generational. So he's not going to jump Caleb. That's impossible to do, I think, at this point. But
Yeah.
he could challenge Jaden. I know he can challenge Jaden Daniels. I think he can also challenge Drake May. If
Yeah.
it would not surprise me if Washington was like, we're taking JJ McCarthy number 2. It wouldn't
It wouldn't
shock me.
surprise me either.
It
Yeah.
wouldn't shock me.
And
I don't.
I know this is a really boring answer, but I'm just still always going to say it. At the end of the day, it really is just going to depend on what this regime wants as far as
Mhm.
the quarterback and what they want out of the quarterback. I
Yeah.
can easily see them picking JJ McCarthy or
Mhm.
Drake May or Jaden Daniels. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. I
but
think they're all in play at this point. That's kind of how I feel.
absolutely. And obviously, I think the big winner thus far, if we really want to summarize, is JJ McCarthy is the big winner. He's
Mhm.
definitely moved himself up in the ranks
Yep.
just based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams, untouchable, still number one. He knows it.
He can do whatever he
Drake
wants.
May, I think, actually probably. What would you say? I say his stock rose a little bit more, at least to me.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that Drake May did a good job of being present and visible at the combine,
yeah,
where I didn't see as much of Jaden Daniels, and I definitely didn't see as much of Caleb, but I did see that I heard Caleb stayed longer. Like he
right.
stayed until it was over. So he at least
Now
was
you had
present.
mentioned Bo Nix, and
Yeah.
I saw a little bit of him, not a lot.
Hmm.
He looks really, really muscular, but a little stiff to me. And I'm
Hmm.
just
It's built
again,
like a coat hanger.
yeah,
You ever
exactly.
put a coat hanger on a shirt? You're like, wow,
Right.
that's really wide. And then you turn him sideways. You're like, oh, he's not that muscular. He's like built like
Okay.
that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's how it
Interesting.
felt.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's weird. He's broad, but not like
very broad.
like he's got big muscular arms, but he's not like big in the chest or shoulders or anything like that. Like he's shoulders, sorry, or back or anything like that.
Yeah, and I just, I'm a little spoiled. We are from Patrick
Mhm.
Mahomes, a player like that, where he just kind of like contorts his way in anything. And for me, Bo Nix seems like the opposite of that.
Yeah,
Very just stiff and just not going to move a lot. But I don't know.
he's a lot like Derek Carr.
Yeah,
That's
And
how
you
I
know
feel
how I
about him.
feel about Derek Carr. I don't know why that guy's still in the league.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, he's a lot like that. He's like going to be your baseline starting quarterback, probably as a ceiling. And he's got a pretty good arm and he's pretty accurate, but he's never going to take a lot of shots. He's very safe with the football. That's kind of how I compare him
right.
to. So, and then Joe Alt measured in almost
Yeah.
6'9".
Oh,
That's
I wrote down a lot of things for this too because I was blown away. Yeah, and his 40 was really impressive, but the most
Yeah, it
impressive thing about
was
his 40 was for the first 5 yards, he
5-yard
he
split,
was the
10-yard split.
fastest over the last 2 years. He did like
Yeah.
14 seconds for the
That's
first
all I
5
care
yards.
about. That's all I care about with linemen too. 5 yards,
Right,
maybe
right.
10.
Let's see what else I wrote down for him. As far as broad jumps, he was the top one for all of them, and it was a pretty big difference. He was 9 feet 4 inches. The next one was Olu Fashanu at 9 feet 1 inch. So I thought that was really impressive.
And Olu was supposed to be more athletic than him too. He was supposed to be, and he got
Right.
hurt. He hurt his thigh today. Olu.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not serious.
I mean, but you're talking about a dude that's 6'8", 320 pounds,
Yeah,
and that's his broad jump. That's just
he's a monster. He's
and
huge.
if you look at the dude, he looks like he would just destroy anybody. I'm
He's
just suddenly became like in awe of him while watching him.
he's a Sasquatch.
He really is.
Yeah.
So, obviously I'm not a fan of drafting O linemen really early, but I know that's on the table. People talk about that. I think one of our buddies, Jason Lewis, that's something he wanted, for us to kind of
And get a
stick with
Penix
who we
Slade or
have.
something.
Yeah. But I mean, he is a beast. So I definitely think he's
I
going to
wouldn't
be
do
the
it.
first.
You top 3 pick. You're not going to want to draft in the top 2 anytime soon.
But would you say you think
quarterback.
he's the first big boy off the board, the O lineman? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I agree.
Oh yeah. He's the most well-rounded. He can move his feet and he can run block. So
yeah,
he can play both sides if you want to. Where I think Olu is more of just a left tackle. I think it'd be hard to put him on the right and like make it functional for in the beginning. Like he could probably learn it. Where Joe Alt, I feel like he can play both sides. He has in the past. And he'd be able to kind of flip flop if a team already has a left tackle that maybe Alt needs more development. He'd be able to come in and play the right side, and that's an advantage, right? Because he can do multiple things, and he is a projected left tackle of the future kind of thing. Like he's a high end guy. So yeah, I think he's going to be the one off the board. Olu's probably going to be second. I think he tested the second best until he got hurt. So that's probably your 1-2 now, even though a lot of people were, I was one of them thinking that maybe Olu could drop a little bit, but I think that's just premature stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I picked Joe Alt to go to the Chargers at number 5 or 4. 5.
Olu or Alt? Alt was the Chargers in our mock draft, which will finish this week, by the way. So Alt was 5, and I think Olu went 7. To Tennessee or something like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we had Joe Alt to the Chargers.
Yeah, that's right. It was the Chargers at 5. Okay. And then there was the question at 6 whether to take Neighbors or JJ McCarthy, which I've changed my mind about. So Theo Johnson was somebody you wanted to talk about.
I definitely want to talk to him about him. That dude impressed me. And it's funny because I was watching him live and I was just kind of blown away. Again, to me, this sounds silly, but just the way that somebody carries themselves on the field, the way they move, the way they can jump for the ball. He looks super stretchy to me. The way he can contort, he's super tall. And I was telling you all this, and that's when you actually pulled up his stats for
his
what
RAS.
he did,
his relative athletic score they do every year.
This right here. And I was blown away by some of this stuff on here. So
he's a 10. He's a 10.
I mean, he's basically a 10. Yeah, he is.
No, he is a 10.
No, he actually is a 10. Yeah. So, with the Commanders, with that really, that second pick in the top of the second round, this guy will be available. I don't know, but we obviously need tight end. We got rid of Logan Thomas. Not a big fan of Bates. He's a young guy that we have. He's okay, but nothing to write home about.
Yeah.
So this is definitely a position of need for us.
So the kid from Texas did not test well. He was supposed to be tight end too.
Okay.
Really bad. Gosh, I can't. His name is escaping me now. It doesn't really matter. He tested awful. Like he ran like a 4.7 40-yard dash, and he was supposed to be a better athlete than that. I still think he's probably going to be the second one off the board, but I think Theo has a chance to really stake his claim as tight end 3. and be a sort of a developmental guy. Stats are not amazing like we talked about before, but
Yeah.
it's Penn State. Penn State doesn't pass the ball like that. There's another
Yeah, I watched a
situation in
lot
the
of
Big
his
Ten
video
team.
after that. Yeah.
He's long. He's 6'6". He's built like an old school tight end if you want that. And he's a good athlete like a new school tight end. So
Right.
you see a lot of these guys like Brock Bowers weighed measured in at 6'3" and like a quarter and like 243 or 5 or something like that. That's kind of your new wave. That's how big Dalton Kincaid was and Sam Laporta was,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So he's not that guy, but he could be if, there's still a place for real tight ends in the NFL that can do multiple things. And in fact, I think if I had to bet, I think this new wave of tight ends is a flash, not a trend that's going to last. Just because of the nature. It's like if you're just going to put a tight end in the slot all the time, why don't you just put a wide receiver in the slot? It's quicker and faster. Like, I don't care about jump balls in the slot or contested catches. I want a guy who eats up space. If you can't block, if you can block, then fine. Like Kincaid proved this year that he can block, at least serviceably, so he can kind of move around a little bit. But if I'm going to have a guy that's just in the slot all the time, unless he's amazing, like give me a slot receiver instead. That's how I think about it. So
Right.
I think that you're going to have a hard time finding multiple guys that are going to be able to do that. So
yeah.
to just go over the whole league, like more of them going to start looking like him instead. Good. Sorry.
Right. No, and I just wanted to mention this dude. This is a guy that in training camp last year, this is all we heard about was this dude and how he was going to be a huge part of the offense. And of course, he got injured, didn't even see any game last year. So I'm curious if the new regime is going to like this guy and if he's going to be used, or we're still just going to move on and draft somebody. So I just wanted to mention this guy.
And Rodgers is pretty light too. So it depends on how they want to run their offense. Yeah. So if they want to run their offense with an H-back or I guess you should call it the Chris Cooley type, or what's the other guy that used to play for Washington that was like that?
Logan Paulson?
No, not Paulson. He was Jordan Reed.
Jordan Reed. He was amazing.
Yeah, unless you want him to be that kind of player, they're going to have to figure out what they want to do with him, whether they make him like a back end wide receiver 6 who plays special teams, or if they want him to actually play a backup tight end, which can happen. I mean, they're lighter and lighter. So,
so are we going to talk about the Bills?
Yeah, that's what I was going to get into next. Okay. So the first thing is the safety and defensive tackle options. I'm going to make my case right now that people online and on Twitter are freak out on you if you think, oh, if you say wide receiver or bust, you don't know what you're talking about. There's only 3 positions that we really, really should fill, maybe 4. And I don't see any at the back end of the first round that are worth it. Safety, there's not a first round value, in my opinion. Defensive tackle, there's 1 first round value, maybe 2. And I think both of them will be gone before we pick. So I really do believe that this is a wide receiver draft. A draft that we're going to need to take a wide receiver in. I just believe that in my heart. We need that to make our offense better. If we get a defensive tackle or a safety, a rookie safety at that, we're not going to be any better. We're going to be the same team waiting for these guys to develop behind other guys, where we can actually get a wide receiver too that can probably start day 1 given our depth chart and impact the team like we haven't been able to in the last 3 years while we wait around with Gabe Davis and wasted time.
Yeah.
So 3 things real quick. Byron Murphy, who is the best defensive tackle in this draft, did test very well, but he's a 3 tech, which means he is shading over the, it depends on what side you're on, but you're on the outside shoulder of the guard. Okay. That position is for a pass rushing, smaller defensive tackle, like an Ed Oliver for us. He's the same kind of position. He can play more 1 tech than Oliver, which means you're shaded over top or to the corner or the inside corner of the guard or an outside shoulder of the center, but we don't really necessarily need that skill set. So in all the 1 techs, defensive tackles, the big boys who fill up space, they're not first round values. Okay. So I'm going to throw that out the window. I don't even think Byron Murphy is going to be there. The second thing is Nubins and Kinchins. These are the 2 top safeties on most people's boards going into the combine. Kinchins tested like complete shit. So he ran like a 4.65 and he looked stiff. Like I said in my preview video, he did not come through with his testing numbers like he needed to. And Nubins didn't test.
Was that just your observation that he looked stiff?
He looked stiff.
Yeah.
He did not run well in his agility drills. He did not run well in the 40. He measured in fine weight and height, but I don't care about that if you can't move.
Yeah.
And he played in the ACC. Some people point to his play in the ACC, but the ACC wasn't very good passing the ball a year. So what did he really have to do competing against those squads? So the other one's Nubens. Nubens is a safety. He's my safety one. He did not even test.
Okay.
He's probably still going to be an early second, maybe a late first round pick, but he's not like a slam dunk first rounder regardless. So I'm over it. I'm moving on. This is my soapbox. I'm going on to wide receiver. So first guy I want to talk about is Troy Franklin. Played at Oregon. Loved his game. At the top of the stem, like at the top of his route, he looks a lot like, this is going to sound crazy, Justin Jefferson. But every other part of the route doesn't look like that, right? So he needed a little bit of work, but he was supposed to be a burner, and we knew he was going to be skinny. Well, he's not 6'3", 187. He measured at 6'2" and 175. That's a big difference. Then he ran. It was a 4.41. That's fine if you're 6'2" and 195 or 200, but when you're 175, be honest, I expect faster than that. And then in the drills, you should see his gauntlet drills, maybe the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. You're supposed to run on a straight line. He was weaving like this as they were throwing him passes the whole way through. So, and as you can see, his statistics are great. So thanks for pulling that up. He probably had the worst day, in my opinion, of any wide receiver. And it's not just because he was skinny. It's because he was stumbling and dropping passes, and he just did not look good. I took him from maybe thinking, oh, at pick 28, I might want this guy, right? And now I'm like, I don't want him until round 3 if I had to. That's how far he dropped, because he didn't look prepared.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it. And then the second part is a lot of his flaws that he has on tape, where his hands are a little shaky at times, and where he gets knocked off his route some, and he isn't good in contested catch situations, kind of showed up in the drills. So I'm out on him. I think it's his worst day of a wide receiver. The second one that some people might point to as the worst day is Keon Coleman, wide receiver, Florida State. He's 6'3", like 213 is what he measured in at. He interviewed really well. I thought he did really good on the podium. He seemed like a good kid, and I think Buffalo interviewed him. Buffalo interviewed both these guys. He did not time well, but he's a big guy, right? So he ran 4.61 was his official. That's pretty slow. But his RAS score, like the thing you just pulled up for the tight end, was over a 9 still, which is very good because he had a 40-inch vert and he had a really good long jump, and he's a big guy. And even though he had the second slowest time speed for receivers of the day in the 40, he had the second best in the drills for miles per hour. So that means when he ran that straight line that I was telling you about, Franklin weaving all over the place, he was running a straight line perfectly. You could tell he just trusts his hands. The ball was coming. He was plucking it, turn, pluck, pluck as he went down the field. And that tells me that he maybe has much better game speed than he does time speed. Do I think he probably lost some money because of the 40? Yes. He's not a late first round pick anymore, in my opinion. He's more like probably a mid to late second round pick, if I had to guess. And I'd be okay with us taking him at 60, but I would not take him at pick 28 anymore. So he lost himself probably some money just because he didn't run as fast as everybody thought he would.
Are you going to get to who you want?
Yeah, I'm getting there, man.
28. Oh,
chill out, bro.
Damn,
chill
man.
out, man.
I mean, I'm in suspense over here.
I'm rolling. I got one more person.
Every time you pick a player, it's like, all right, it's him, and you're like, no. But I'm not picking him. I'm like, oh, well, damn. All right, let's go to the.
Well, I'm not even necessarily picking people. I'm just telling you who I think should be out of the question for 28.
No, I hear you.
And I'm getting somewhere with it. So next is Xavier Worthy.
Okay.
He broke the combine record for 40-yard dash. He ran a 4.21, as fast as anybody's ever run by the laser time, right? So he ran it and he didn't do any drills. So he ran it twice and then walked off and said he's going to go to his pro day. That's fine. I don't care. But he weighed in at 165, dude. That is so damn skinny. And people will compare him to Devontae Smith. I disagree. Devontae Smith is an outlier. You cannot.
What's Xavier Worthy?
He played at Texas. Yeah.
Okay.
So people like to take outliers, Deshaun Jackson and Devonta Smith, people like that, and go, that's him. But you can't compare an extreme, not just an outlier, an extreme outlier to the guy you're looking at. You don't know is going to be good, right? Just because you watched him on tape, you don't know how he's going to perform when he goes up a level. I do like him. I think he's in play for first round now. I think he improved his draft stock more than anybody else because people saw that speed. They're like, oh my gosh, what can we do with this? Even though he's super skinny. Right. I do have questions. So now it's to the picks. I think what we saw in this combine really did solidify the top 4 receivers are there. They're not going to change. It's going to be Brian Thomas Jr., Odunze, Neighbors, and Marvin Harrison Jr., right?
Right.
The next 4 now, I think, are pretty solidified based on the testing and how they performed. It's A.D. Mitchell from Texas, who played with Worthy. Xavier Worthy, guy we just talked about. Xavier Leggett, who's probably on the back end of that group, but he's in it. And then Ladd McConkey from Georgia, who did really well for himself also at the combine. So I don't know who it's going to be. Those are my tier 2 guys now.
Okay.
So that's where we're probably going to be picking at the end of the day.
So what's the wide receiver situation currently for the Bills?
So we have Stephon Diggs, who's another year older and probably the last year he's going to be here. Okay. We've got Khalil Shakir's in the slot. And then we have
Gabe Davis is gone.
Gabe Davis is going to be gone. We have Justin Shorter, who was an awful pick last year in the draft.
Okay.
We're going to lose probably Deontay Hardy, and I don't think we'll have Sherfield back. So we have a big need there.
Yeah.
One of the questions, one of the big things going around towards Ladd McConkey, and everybody's talking about how like everyone's labeling him a slot wide receiver because he's white, and that's not the case. He's a slot wide receiver because of his play style and his length. He actually tested really, really well, but he's got short arms, and he's only 5'11". And he's going to have a hard time beating press coverage on the outside of the line of scrimmage. And beating someone down the field often isn't always clean. Sometimes you have to beat people in contested catches, and he's not going to be able to do that. And that's why. And he wins like a slot receiver. Like he'll do a lot of his catches and stuff over the middle of the field. So I don't get it. I think they just want to make an excuse for it so they can say he can play on the outside, which he did in college a lot. But I think it's more of just like, oh, this is probably who we're going to take. Let me start making excuses for it now is what it feels like, so.
and you've got your second round pick, right?
Still? Yeah, we still have a second pick 60. Yeah.
Okay. And do you think any of the DBs that you're interested in will still be available at 60 or no?
So my hope is that we go to free agency and get a safety.
Okay.
And because I think that position needs leadership qualities and communication skills that a rookie probably doesn't possess right off the bat. In rare cases, it does. So, but yeah, I'd prefer that. I'd probably prefer a defensive tackle in round 2.
Maybe Cameron Curl's available for you.
Yeah, or Savage, or there's a lot of these guys out there that I think might be affordable. I don't know if Curl's going to be affordable, but that's kind of how I feel. I think defensive tackle, and we need more bodies, so maybe D tackle in round 2 if I had a preference, and then round 3 start stacking safety. But I did have one last thing I wanted to bring up. I want to get your thoughts on. So I heard today that it was going to cost the Giants 3 seconds, to move up from pick 6 to pick 3 for the Patriots pick. And then right after that, let me see if I can find it. Where is it? Give me 2 seconds. I'm going to share screen really quick. Oops. Here we go. I'm just going to see what your thoughts are on this. Here we go. All right. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me get down to it. Here we go. And if you can't read that, it says, this was a couple hours ago, Wesley Steinberg says big Giants trade announcement to come in the next few hours.
Woo.
So,
well, why would they need to move up?
So he's been wrong in the past, by the way. He's not always right, but he is a Giants insider for the NFL. So, so it's not like some fake account or anything like that. So he's verified and things.
Well, I see this other tweet for. Oh, never mind. That's last year. Okay.
Yeah. He had a pinned tweet at the top, right?
Okay.
So, and that's the last tweet he's had from a few hours ago, 3:44 p.m. So I don't know if that's going to happen tonight, or if it could be a load of crap, but it could be something with Saquon Barkley. It could be like a tag and trade, or it could be anything. So
that's true.
But people are assuming it's draft pick. So
yeah.
I could see the Patriots moving out. I could see the Cardinals moving. The Cardinals said they are for sale. So
Yeah.
it could be either one, man. I'm telling you.
Well, I am a true believer that the Giants do want to move on from Daniel Jones, and I think they're going to draft a quarterback. Um, I would think. I thought that JJ McCarthy would be available. Obviously, our conversation insists, it kind of suggests that's not the case anymore. Maybe
they're okay with any of the four.
Right. Or maybe they really like somebody that they are worried won't be there. If that's the case, if it has to do with the draft, trading up for that, we'll see. Yeah.
Especially with the Cardinals saying they're for sale and the Patriots have been not against it.
Right. But you obviously think you're not a fan of Daniel Jones. I'm not either. I see him a lot, obviously, as a Commanders fan. I think he's just mediocre at best. Not sure why they gave him so much money.
I think he sucks.
So to me, the sooner they move on, the better. I think it's a good opportunity since he's injured and he's coming back from an injury, I should say. Good opportunity to slip somebody in there to work behind him. And then if he gets injured again, he can start the new guy. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I didn't see that tweet. That's good to know.
I stumbled across it actually. I was just
like
kind
you
of
said, it could just be about Saquon or trying to move him somewhere. So we'll see.
It could be just smoke screen season and a bunch of bullshit.
That's true too. So the other thing to mention is Tyron Smith that from the Cowboys it sounds like the Cowboys are going to move on from him. He's a free agent. He's been like their rock solid left tackle.
Yep.
For the last decade. I didn't know a lot about him, even though he played for the Cowboys. It does sound like he gets injured a lot, though.
He's been injured on and off, but he's also
amazing, right?
3 left tackle in the league for a while. Not anymore. Probably now he's probably more like top 10, but when he plays, but he does get hurt.
And again, I would love to have him. We've got a lot of money to spend. That's a need of ours. Doesn't mean we can't draft somebody too, but I'd love to pick that dude up. So
yeah. I think that would be a good I don't think he's gonna be super expensive because of his age. You might be able to snag him for $10 or $11 million a year. That's just my guess. He's actually on Spot Rack listed less than that, like $7 million, which I think is crazy. So even my 10 or 11 is probably off. It's probably higher than that, but you have tons of money, like $90 million now. He'd be a perfect vet, 2-year deal. Give him some money, spread out the cap for 2 years on it. And then if he leaves next year, you lost some money. But, I think he'd be a really good fit on an offensive line that sorely needs leadership and veteran leadership to help them take themselves to the next level. The one thing that was shocking for me going through your depth chart is looking at your offensive line and going, I don't know any of these players. Like, not really. You know what I mean? And that's a problem. If I don't know, I know their names and I'm looking it up on PFF thinking how does this person rate? Because I have no clue. I have to look up pass block win rates or whatever, but I can do that. But I usually know something about the guys, I'm just shocked that Sam Howell's still living after that.
What? No, So Charles Leno, that's who we released.
I know him, but he's not like a real player.
What do you mean?
He doesn't exist in real life. He's imaginary.
And then Nick Gates.
I'm being figurative, not literal.
I want to say Nick Gates, we released him too. And I want to say we drafted him last year. It might have been the year before, but he was a complete bust to begin with. He looked terrible. We ended up actually starting one of our veteran guys over him because he was so terrible. So he's gone. Logan Thomas. I just thought I'd mention this if there's any Commanders fans. So we got rid of Logan Thomas, who I liked him, but the problem with him, he just could not stay healthy. He could not put a string of seasons together. He had one fairly decent season, and that was about it. So
he had one good year. I think tight end position is definitely a need, and maybe in the draft, or maybe I'd almost address that in free agency if there's anybody available. I haven't gone through it and looked and see who the tight ends are that are available, but it's probably. But
again, I'm curious to see what they're going to do with Amari Rodgers. He was supposed to be pretty promising, and he got hurt, so we'll see on that too.
We'll see what they do with it. I think you're going to have a totally different team come the beginning. So next Monday, not this Monday, the next Monday in 8 days is going to be an exciting time to be a Commanders fan. We're going to have to come on here multiple times that week and talk about who you just signed. That's what I think is going to happen. We're going to come on and be like, all right, emergency podcast. What happened today?
Oh, for sure.
They just
For sure.
signed. They just traded for T. Higgins. I'm not saying
Yep.
that's not happen, but it's gonna be stuff like that. That's really what and if it isn't, I'd be shocked because you have an NBA owner. They're used to like playing the waiver wire and making trades, and like they're historically way more active than an NFL team. So I wonder if he's going to play into that some and just talk to the GM and be like, hey, can we afford it? Cool, let's go get this guy. That's how I feel like it's going to go.
Yeah.
Which is exciting.
By the way, I don't know if you remember this because you're not a true Commanders fan. You're a Bills fan, but you still might remember this. But you remember like back in the day, it was like 15 years ago when Dave Snyder, we bought every free agent available. We brought like Deion Sanders on, Bruce Smith. We brought
I remember that was longer than 15 years ago, dude. That was like
longer.
20. That's had been 22 or 23 years ago. That was like in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I'm just old. I think I don't realize.
Maybe it was the late 90s. Buffalo lost.
It was
Bruce
the late
Smith.
90s because that's the year that we actually they predicted we'd win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And after we got all these players and we ended up sucking.
That's because this free agency was still like an infant back then. It was like an 8-year-old system that they didn't really know how to manipulate properly.
Yeah,
and teams are still chasing
so much
old guys.
money for Adam Archuleta.
Yeah, they're just chasing names and thinking this is going to make our team better.
Exactly,
and then
what we did. We chased. Yeah. Oh, he sounds good.
He sounds good. Yeah. He was good in 1988.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't think that's going to be the case here. We've got some good people in.
No, I think you're going to do it right. I think you're going to go get players that help your team.
Yeah,
that's it. It's going to be exciting because even on Monday, you're going to hear rumors. It's going to be like you just signed a starting linebacker, which the guy you want's going back to Tampa supposedly. So
yeah,
Devin White. So I don't think he's going to. That's what I heard. I heard he wants to. So he's probably out. But there's plenty of other guys like Patrick Queen's on the market.
No, and I'm Josh Allen. I think he was my number 2 favorite.
But he's more of an edge rusher anyway. He's listed as a linebacker, but he's going to be he'll be a lineman like Chase is on your team. Like he'll move. So like if he's on your team because you play more of a 4-3, you're going to have him as an end. If he plays on a 3-4 team like the Jaguars, he's going to be an outside linebacker. The same one just stands up.
Right.
That's really the main. I mean, there's some other things, but this is basically the difference.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Cool, man.
We'll be going there. I appreciate you coming out and doing this on a Sunday, dude. Anything else you want to talk about?
That's it, man.
Cool.
And then I think at some point we're going to do a recap of the Commanders staff because we haven't gone over that.
Yeah, we can do that this week and finish the draft this week.
So many talented people on there on our staff now compared to what we used to have. I think it's worth mentioning. So we can do that. I might even do it on my own solo. Do a little different this time.
Yeah, dude. If you want to do it, just jump on and do it. And
I don't need your ass.
I'll be in the comments commenting to you and it's like, you sound stupid.
Oh, I'm sure you will. Yeah.
You sound dumb. You sound good, bro. Yeah. So that's it. We're going to also do the draft again, like finish the draft this week. And I'm going to do a mock 2.0, like all the way through, maybe later this week too, or maybe the week after. I want to do a post combine mock. So that's on the docket also down the road. So we'll get to there. We'll get there eventually. So anyway, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time, dude.
Later, guys. Later, Alex.